Hey guys, welcome to the first episode of this new series called Stats. What are them? How to use them. If you have seen my Rebuilding Your Team series, you know how many stats I use regardless of the sport. In this series, I will explain which ones I use depending on the context and positions of the player. For this first episode, I am focusing on baseball, specifically starting pitchers. 50 years ago or more, all people cared about were wins, strikeouts, and ERA. Now we know these stats don't tell you that much about a pitcher. So in this video I will tell you which ones don't matter and why, which ones do matter and why, and which ones to use. So hope you enjoy. First, we're focusing on stats that are used but don't matter and why. To start, we have the wins. And let's face it, wins are not a pitcher stat, they are team stats. So if a guy in the Dodgers allows 6 runs in 5 innings, but as he's in the Dodgers, his team scores 12 runs, he should get better recognition than a starter in the Orioles that gives up 3 runs in 8 innings, but his team does not score at all. This win narrative was killed by Jacob deGrom in 2018, as he won the Cy Young and finished 5th in MVP voting while having only 10 wins and 9 losses. All because the Mets sucked that year and he was so dominant. But still, wins are a team stat. They are not a pitcher stat. Because for a team to win, or for a pitcher to win, it depends on the team, not only on him. The second stat that sometimes are used in starting pitcher that shouldn't be used and doesn't matter is the quality start. A quality start is when a pitcher throws 6 innings or more and allows 3 runs or less. Of course, if he goes for a shutout, it counts, but he needs to finish the 6th inning with 3 or less runs. You see the problem there, right? First, we know starters sometimes go less than 6 innings. For example, Walker Buehler had 9 more quality starts than Cy Young winners Corbin Burns. Does this mean he's a bad pitcher? Of course not, but it's not because of the quality starts. Also, if a pitcher has a meltdown in the 7th inning and allows 5 runs or more, we're giving him a good game for the first 6 innings when he cost us the game in the 7th. This doesn't make sense, so please don't say a pitcher is good or bad based on quality starts. Then we have stats that kind of matter but aren't great, but they do have some variations that can help us. The first one is the strikeout. Let's start with something. Strikeouts are a pitcher stat, but they shouldn't be used as a counting stat. So strikeouts like that don't matter. What matters are K percentage, K per 9, and everything. Let me explain. A pitcher is way more dominant by having a higher K percentage and K per 9, because with how analytics and bullpens work, many teams don't let their guys pitch so much. Like for example, I use Corbin Burns. So someone who's able to dominate every inning is better. Like last year, I will use Wheeler and Burns to compare. Wheeler had 213 innings and 247 Ks. This gave him 10.42 Ks per 9 and 24 K percentage. This is great actually. But on the other hand, we have the Cy Young winner Corbin Burns that had only 234 strikeouts in 167 innings. This gave him a 35K percentage and 12.6 K per 9. You can see who was better and more dominant. And my point, right? Because the counting stat, especially in 162 games, gives space to, the pitchers depend more on how they are managed and injuries and everything. So strikeouts shouldn't be a counting stat, should be a per 9 or percentage stat. The second stat that kind of matters is the ERA. The thing with ERA is that it is too general, and there are a lot of alternatives and a lot of circumstances that can affect a pitcher. If you're one of the guys that says ERA matters because runs win and lose games, which I don't blame you, you have another option like ERA+. ERA Plus measures the pitcher's ERA against the average of the league. For example, if a pitcher has 141 ERA Plus, that means he's 41% better than the league average. The league average will always be at 100. Another option is expected ERA, as it bases how many runs a pitcher should allow based on the quality of the contact and the quantity. So if he strikes out or walks a lot of batters, that will increase his ERA, expected ERA, And if a pitcher has an ERA lower than his expected ERA, means he has been lucky or has a great defense behind him. But if his expected ERA is lower, means that the pitcher has been unlucky or has not great defense to help him. Now, with stats that do matter, we have FIP, or Fielding Independent Pitcher. As the name says, it's how good a pitcher does without caring about how his team feels behind him. This stats only measures what the pitcher controls, like home runs, walks, hit by pitch, and strikeouts. The lower the FIP, the better. According to Anthony Castrovinci in his book A Fan's Guide to Baseball Analytics, and also the Fangraphs Glossary, a FIP below 3.2 is excellent, a FIP between 3.5 and 3.2 is great, and between 3.8 and 3.5 is above average, 4.4 and 4.2 is average, and below average, A FIP between 4.7 and 4.4 is poor, and a FIP above 5 is awful. The formula changes every year because it is measured with the FIP constant, and that's about the league average that year, so it changes every year. We can also use expected FIP, as it calculates it based on the amount of fly balls a pitcher allows, because ground balls are more likely to be a hit, but fly balls are more likely to be an extra base hit. So it takes a variation to see how lucky or how unlucky and the quality of the contact he has been allowing. The next stat we are using is WHIP. This is walks plus hits per inning pitch. This name is also self-explanatory. You add the walks and hits a pitcher allows and divide it by the innings he's pitched. A WHIP under 1 is excellent, from 1.1 and 1 is great, 1.2 is above average, 1.3 is average, 1.4 is below average, and 1.6 or more is awful. So as you can see, the lower of the WHIP, the better the pitcher is, because this measures how much traffic you allow on the base paths. I do like WHIP more on starters than on relievers, because as it is based on average, one bad outing by a reliever and skyrockets their WHIP to like 3. And it is not as constant as with starters. That's why I use it more on starters than on relievers. But it's still a great stat to use in both. The next stat we're looking at applies for both relievers and starters, and it is K percentage minus walks percentage. Again, self-explanatory. It's what percentage of the batters you face that it's striked out, and then you subtract the percentage of the batters a pitcher walks. As baseball is a game that involves a lot of luck and circumstances, most of them are when the ball is put in play. So when you're only measuring walks and strikeouts, you limit the luck and depend 100% on what you do against a batter. So I really like this stat, and it's a great one to use to measure like a pitcher's dominance. Sometimes it's tricky because some pitchers don't strike out as much and pitch to soft contact, especially relievers. But for starters, it's a great measure on how much he dominates and how much he depends on himself. Now, for the final stat that does work for starters is the SIERA. It's a variation of ERA, as it has some of the bases, but SIERA means Skill Interactive ERA. But one of the things that I like the most about SIERA is that it is ballpark adjusted. This means that a home run in the short porch of Yankee Stadium, that probably isn't a home run anywhere else, won't hurt you as much as a home run hit to dead center in Comerica. SIERA has more or less the same ranges as ERA, as anything under 3 is great. Average is around 3.8, 4, 4.1, and anything over 5 is awful. I think SIERA says more about a pitcher than ERA in general, as it doesn't involve as much the defense and does rely more on the ballpark, because not every ballpark is the same, and sometimes if you're a starting pitcher in Detroit, you have an advantage over a starting pitcher in Boston or in Yankee Stadium. Well guys, there you have it. 4 stats to use on starters, 2 more stats to change, and finally the 2 stats that you should not use at all on starters. So I hope guys you enjoyed this new series and this video, because there's a lot more coming. So thanks for watching and see you next time.